You said let's do it like you were really going to kick it off, so I was waiting for you. But
I got it.
Okay,
Yeah, like I'm here.
Okay, great.
Welcome.
Well,
Welcome back.
to Girl Everything's Fine, and welcome, Layla.
Thank you, ladies.
Yes, we have Leila Ortiz here. She is a PhD psychologist and
LCPC.
Yes,
What is an
ma'am.
LCPC?
It's a licensed clinical professional counselor.
Okay.
and
Legit.
Just
one
the
of
licensure.
Yeah.
my very near and dear human beings.
Thanks. I received that.
She's the best.
She is the best. How the hell are you?
You know, I'm actually very good.
Okay, great.
The world is kind of literally caught on fire. and
Literally
falling
on
apart,
fire,
I
yes.
know.
But I'm good.
Okay,
I've
great.
worked a very long time and very hard to be this good. And
Yes.
It's nice to be good. Honestly.
Yeah.
When everything else is falling apart, it's good to say that I'm okay.
Totally. And like truly lean into like,
Yeah.
I'm good.
I'm not great, right? I have my days, but
Yeah.
I'm okay. And it feels so good to say I'm okay.
Oh, I love that.
Love that.
I love that. Tay, how are you?
I'm good. It's been a weird week, but we're vibing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Just keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
The start of this new year has been not what I expected it to be. Like I felt like we were running into 2025 like full throttle with vibes, and I feel like everyone is just like, what the fuck is going on?
There's some weird energy. I don't know
There
what
is
it
weird
is, but
energy.
there's something like everybody got sick in the beginning of the year, and then I think almost it's like the world being like, hey, maybe we need to slow down. Like I don't know, or maybe we need like a dose of reality type of thing where it's like we all live in like this like you got to do a million things, and then the world is like,
Yeah, I feel like the world is
not.
literally like, bitch, you thought. Like, you know?
yeah.
How about you?
I mean, I'm a little scattered, but I'm coming
Yeah,
down
that's
to
okay.
earth. I'm like coming back down.
A chaotic morning, if you will?
Yeah, I think I'm coming back to just like,
Yeah.
and
little
your
zen
energy
moment?
feels so good. So I'm like, I'm like leaning into that.
Yeah.
You know?
great. We love it.
Yeah.
Let's dive right in, shall
Let's
we?
do it. I'm like so excited
I
because
know.
I feel
I'm
like
so excited.
This is going
like-
to be such a hot topic. I
this
can't
is
wait.
entering like the world is like, get ready, Layla, because the world is like, like you're on now.
Yeah.
Like
It's your,
everybody's gonna know who you
That's
are.
why I need to be good.
you're
That's
great.
what I've been working hard for.
Yeah, but I feel like you just like have all this like differentiating knowledge that like is not everyday things that people see, but it's can help the everyday person, which I feel like is like so huge.
Yeah, 100%. So tell us a little bit about you.
Who you are, how
Who you
got
are,
like
where you're from.
you can start as deep and nitty gritty as like childhood, or you can like how did you even decide to like PhD, LCPC? Like how did you decide to go down that road?
Well, let me take you back.
Yeah,
So,
take us all the way.
I was born in Iran. I was born during a war. So the first 8 years of my life, I lived in a war.
Wow.
Which is a crazy, crazy, crazy like culture I can't even imagine.
Right. So that's where my trauma started.
Okay.
I didn't even know I had it until later on in life.
Oh yeah.
And then I grew up in Sweden. So 8 years old, we moved to Sweden, and I lived there until I was 20.
Wow.
And today, to the day, I moved to Chicago 23
wow.
years ago.
Oh my God,
to
happy
the day.
anniversary.
It's my Chicago anniversary.
Oh my God, we love this.
So I came here as an au pair, which is
Okay.
a fancier name for a living nanny. I lived with this amazing family. They had 4 kids, still have
In
4
Chicago?
kids. In Vernon Hills.
Oh my God, that's
the Chicago
I'm like right,
suburbs, yeah.
right from there.
Yeah. And then I went back to school and got my bachelor's and my master's and my PhD, and I just ended up staying here.
How did you find the Vernon Hills? I always think about this and I'm like, why would someone decide to be like, I'm coming to Chicago and 2, like Vernon, like Buffalo Grove or
So
whatever.
I didn't choose it.
Okay.
It was just like I put it out there, and they matched me with with a family.
Oh, great.
Oh, okay,
Supposedly a family that was the right match for me. They were nothing like me. I adore them and love them, and I'm so grateful that I ended up with them. But
Yeah, you're like, okay.
yeah,
And then from there, how did you decide to be like, okay, I think I'm going to go down the road of like psychology?
so I wanted to be a therapist from a very young age because I dealt with my own shit.
Yeah.
I was a very emotional child growing up in a family that wasn't very emotional.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people can relate to.
Right.
I think now more people are open to emotions.
Sure.
But like, I even think about like, as I deal with my own childhood and everything, it's like, it's not the fault of your parents or anything because it's like they didn't know, but it's like when I was younger, I had a therapist be like, I think you have anxiety. And we went home and laughed about it. Like, you don't have anxiety? Like, yeah, I do. Like, I'm the most anxious person ever. But I think it's like not a fault of theirs. It's just like wasn't as open as it is now.
Right. They didn't have the tools to deal with it. My parents didn't have the tools to deal with my emotions.
Yeah.
They would, even if they were emotional beings, they weren't allowed to be.
Yeah.
But I kind of took my space. I'm like, no, I need to figure this out.
Yeah.
So I got a PhD in it.
There you go. That is one way to explore.
That is one day to explore. So I figured myself out.
Okay, great.
At least that's the journey I'm on, still figuring myself out.
Yeah, if you get it figured out, please call me and let me know how.
I write a book.
You should write a book,
I'm going to let
honestly.
you all know in this podcast. We're going to figure it out together.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
I always thought psychology was so interesting to me, and I don't think I had to take it, but it was like one of my courses in undergrad that I took. And because of my anxiety, you'd learn about all these disorders, like the one who, like, the guy couldn't sleep forever. And I was like, one day I can't sleep. And then I'm like, I have this, like, I'm so anxious that I was like, definitely can't go down this road. I knew I couldn't. But you knew that, through your trauma, that this was where, like, you wanted to go.
Well, I try to understand myself and figure myself out. There were very few people growing up that I could go to and talk to about who I am. Mm-hmm. And I felt different. And then growing up in Sweden as a brown kid in a white country, I was different.
Yeah.
So it was so obvious that I was different. So
Yeah.
I started to figure myself out and realized that maybe it's not bad that I'm different.
Yeah.
I just got to figure out how to do it my way.
Yeah.
So that's been Leila's way.
At that age, what tools did you use to figure yourself out?
Oh, good God. I don't really think I had the tools. It was just like survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally the first 8 years of my life was survival. We had to survive, not to die during a war.
Yeah.
And then when we moved, I mean, in retrospect, I get that now, right? When we moved, my parents were still kind of working their nervous system because they lived in a war in 8 years too.
Yeah.
And at 8 years old, I was the first one who learned the language and got familiar with the culture. So I was the one translating and figuring things out for my family. So I grew up very quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of responsibility for an
Right.
8-year-old.
Right. So I didn't really have a typical normal childhood.
Right.
I didn't really know what that even was. So tools, like, is just survival.
Yeah. So I know in, like, psychology, there's a lot of, like, areas that you can go down. Like, I know you could go professor route or whatever. How did, like, I think you said at a young age you wanted to be a therapist, but, like, you've also changed your path as a therapist, I'm sure. So, like.
So I'm a clinical therapist, and my focus was on prenatal, perinatal. So I work.
Oh,
I know a lot of
wow.
people don't
Love
know
that. I didn't know that about you at all.
Yeah. So I worked with it for a while, and then I went through my own hardship with the prenatal route. So it was hard to tap into it for a while. And then I worked with trauma, and I realized everyone has trauma. Whether it's a big T trauma or little T trauma, we all dealing with trauma.
So what is big T, little T trauma?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
I also feel like now, and like I feel like people are just like, oh my God, I have so much trauma. And it's like a cool.
It's a buzzword.
Yeah,
it's
like
a
cool thing to
buzzword.
say.
Yeah.
But like, literally, what is big T, little T
So
trauma?
trauma is not necessarily what's happening. It's how you interpret it and your perspective of what happened. So you and I may experience the same thing, and it wasn't traumatic to you at all.
Yeah.
And you live with your life and deal with it as if nothing. And I'm losing my shit.
Okay.
So it's also about how I am built as a person, my psyche, my support network, the way I was conditioned. There's just so many factors.
Yeah.
There is no one size fit all.
Yeah.
That's what I believe in psychology or in therapy. I have to get to know my clients to figure out what they need.
Totally.
So the big T trauma that most people objectively agree on is if you had an assault or if you went off to war or something like that. But little T trauma could be really anything that you experienced in life that was traumatic to you, that was hard for you, something that was hard for you to get over or
Yeah.
process. And it could be anything.
Yeah. So when you hear people just like throwing around trauma, are you like, the fuck? Or are you more just like, okay.
So
people
as
are-
a person, I'm very curious, and that's why I wanted to be a therapist, because I've learned from a young age that everyone has a story. And
Yeah.
if you learn their story and if you're curious about their story, then you get to know them. And then things make sense. Then you don't say, what the fuck? And you're like, oh, I see what's going on.
Yeah.
Even people who make up their shit. I mean, there's an issue there too. Like, why are you making this shit up?
100%.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about that too.
Yeah.
What
I
kind of
always
trauma?
think that. I'm like,
What happened to you?
why are you? I always think that when people like start to tell a story and you're like, that's not true. And you're
Yeah,
just
and like where did
why
what
aren't you just,
drove
like,
you to actually
telling me the
So
truth?
that's the curiosity. What happened
Yeah.
to you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like maybe
that's
as a
making-
child they had to like sneak around or whatever, so now they're just like telling stories.
Yep.
Have you ever found it difficult to listen to someone talk about a trauma or whatever and remain like unbiased about it?
Absolutely.
You know, like how like
Give my opinion to everybody.
yeah, see, I would be I would be terrible
I do it in
because
my
I'm
head.
like, yeah,
Actually,
I would
like,
be like,
why did
what?
you do that?
Yeah. Or like, don't ever speak to that person again. You know what I mean?
I like to believe that I am who I am with everyone. Like, I'm like
Yeah.
this with my family, with my friends, with my clients. I don't have like a different personality. Like, I'm pretty much the same person all the time. And once I'm comfortable with you, I am more comfortable being like, well, why do we do that? But
Yeah.
not in a judgmental way. Like, why the fuck did you do that?
Yeah.
It was like, okay, so you did that. Let's talk about it.
How did we get here? Yeah.
Again,
I feel like,
curiosity.
yeah, I feel like I would just have a hard time.
Like keeping your
Leaving
face
my
straight,
opinion
or, like,
out of it, yeah.
When something like this is, I know it's personal for everybody, but like when something happens so small and you're like, you're really that upset about it, and then I'm like, how could you just not? Like, I think about when I talk to my therapist, and I'm like my therapist challenges me a lot on things, and one time I literally like. I hung up and I was like, I think I'm firing her. But it was only until I like took a step back and was like, I'm able to see how much she was helping me. And I had to actually like be challenged and like feel uncomfortable to like confront that and recognize it. And then I was like, okay, I'm not firing her. But the next day I came back and I was like, I wanted to fire you because you really like
It's so funny
challenged
how
me.
different people are because I did fire a therapist because she wasn't challenging me. Like, I was showing up and she was just sitting there listening and like, I was like, I need you to give me something. Like, I don't need you to tell me what to do, but I need you to like cut me off in the middle of a sentence and be like, hang on a second, let's like unwrap what you
don't
just said
remember?
there.
I
You
think I
know?
said this in like the Friends episode where I had a therapist. I was dealing with like a lot of stuff. I've binge ate, like restriction, all this stuff, and she just looked at me and was like, I don't understand why you're like so upset. Like, you're pretty and you have friends, and I just was like, what? And I
Yeah.
remember calling my mom after, and she was like, she's fired. We're not going to her anymore. Because I felt like, I don't care how I look, whatever. Like, I'm clearly going through stuff. Like, push me to figure it out. I guess my question to you is, like, do you ever feel like it's hard to turn off, like, therapizing?
Yes. But also, this is who I am.
Yeah.
So
Right.
naturally, when I have a conversation with a friend, I do challenge them.
Yeah.
In the most wonderful way. But with my friends, it's more like, what the fuck, girl?
Yeah.
With my clients, I'm like, well, let's talk about this.
Yeah, it's a little more.
But I'm still that same person, and I do challenge.
Yeah.
But that goes back to there's no one size fit all, right?
Yeah.
You need to find a therapist that's a good match for you.
Totally.
And the person you need is not who she needs, clearly.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
Right.
100%. Yeah.
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 No, I do
Or
think that.
it could be the same person, but they have to switch it off.
Yeah.
Like, I need to know what you need as a therapist
Totally.
and challenge you differently than I challenge her.
Totally. I do think but I do think in that same sense of like the challenging, there's ways to challenge people, I think, in approachable ways, because I do feel like, to Taylor's point, having a therapist that's like just agreeing with everything, like, is that therapizing, or is that just like, I know, is therapizing even a word? I don't know.
No,
But, like,
it is.
It sounds like it. You're
but,
making
like,
it really
do you know
work.
What I mean? Like, it's not that. I feel like in therapy, like, you're supposed to is not the word, but like grow, evolve, like be pushed to go through, even if you're not going through anything. Like, sometimes I'll be like, I have nothing to talk about with my therapist, and then it ends up being like the best session.
Well, that's why
ever.
it's important to set goals.
Yeah.
So I call it intentions instead of goals,
Yeah.
because goals could be a bit triggering to people.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know how to set goals. But what is your intention? Like, what is our intention with this podcast? What is our
Right.
intention with this one episode? What is our intention with our friendship?
Mm-hmm.
What is the intention with the job you have? If you have intention going into something, you have a destination.
Yeah.
Somewhere to go. So what is your intention with therapy? What are you working on?
Yeah.
Or at least with this one session.
Yeah. So how, like, if someone's starting therapy or like looking to start therapy or whatever, do you think like for them thinking, what is my intention for starting therapy? And what if someone's like, I don't know, but I think I should?
So start there.
Okay.
Why should I? There's no should, right?
Yeah.
That's also a thing. I'm like, why should?
Yeah. Well, because I feel like it's like cool to go to therapy now. It wasn't. But I feel like now it's cool to go to
No,
therapy.
it was so taboo. Like you couldn't talk.
Right.
You couldn't be like, I'm going to my like. I remember before I started going to therapy that I used to be like, these people are weird. Like
They're too into like
yeah,
their
and like it's
emotions
really
and
not, and
feelings
it's so different now than it was then. But speaking to somebody starting a journey, what's something you see that causes people to ultimately like fail on their therapy journey? Like they start and then it either they don't get what they need from it because they're not like actively sticking to it. Like what is a barrier to like
Our
remaining?
expectations, honestly.
Okay.
Like if you go in there having a certain set of expectations and reality doesn't look that way, then you feel disappointed. Not just with therapy, with anything.
Yeah.
If you have expectations set based on your assumptions and reality doesn't turn that way, that gap in between expectations and reality is disappointment. And then
Sure,
you fall
yeah.
short. But if you have healthy expectations, then you figure it out. Moving on from there, figuring out as you go.
Sure.
You don't have to have it all planned out. This is life. Things change.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to be flexible. Allow yourself to change.
Okay.
And
Beautiful.
learn and grow.
Love it.
I had a thought in my mind of like the judgment around therapy and the like this, I don't want to say stigma. I have two thoughts. There's one, I feel like, how do you address judgment or the stigma around like those who don't think therapy is like a thing or whatever? And I'm all for therapy. I've been to couples therapy, been to single therapy, had multiple therapists, been to like as a child, I went to therapy because I wouldn't sleep in my own bed. That's a whole other thing, like whole other problem. I'm a wackadoodle.
She's like,
We'll
yeah.
talk about it offline.
You have off camera to
Do you
get
want to
into
therapize
this.
me? Let's go.
It's so funny. I've been out with her in just like casual settings, like something.
I remember being at the casino. Being
Yeah.
like, this chick's so cool.
And I'll say something and she'll be like, ooh, at some point we should really unpack that. Not now. We're not gonna, but
We never get to it,
we
though.
never do. We never do, but
add
she's
the
always
list.
like, huh. Like I can always tell when I say something and she's like, and I'm like, oh no, I've
like,
said
let me
something.
think more about how you are as a human.
Yeah.
But I guess, what do you think about the judgment out there? And then I think, how can someone tell this is a good therapist for me or it's not? Because I think someone just thinks
that's a
therapist, and then they're like, I don't know if this is good for me. Like, I felt in my bones when that therapist said that to me that I was like, no, this is not for me. Like, it felt weird. It felt wrong.
Right.
But some people just are like, maybe that's what a therapist says. Like, how do you know that it's a good therapist? And also, I know it's personal, but like, really, how does someone know?
Well, how do you know a partner is a good partner for you, right? You date around. You figure it out. You learn what you like and what you don't like. You learn what works with you and what doesn't work. And then trial and error.
Yeah.
Same thing with a therapist, really. You date around. You maybe talk to a few therapists and figure out, well, this didn't work. Oh, I like that. I typically ask new clients if they've been in therapy before. And if they have, I always ask what worked for you and what didn't.
So
Then
that's
we'll
like a
take
good
it from the
therapist, though, too, is like what worked, what didn't work. Let's talk about it.
Let's build on what worked and also gauge out, like, well, it worked to do this way. Then I'm, again, curious.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What about this worked for you? And this thing that is really great that most people think it works, it didn't work for you. Why?
Yeah.
What about this didn't work?
Yeah.
I think there's like 10 million different types of therapy as well. Like whether it's like, what is it, CBT focused or it's, what is it, EMDR? I did it myself. I
just
can't
so
even
many
remember.
different
There's like
things.
9,000
Yeah.
different acronyms for like 9,000 different ways to approach things. So maybe it is like that conversation that you're having. And I think it takes a little bit of personal research too sometimes too. Like we can't just show up and expect the person on the other end of the call or the chair or whatever it is to be like, here's exactly the plan that we're going to do that's going to work
Well, I
for
think
you.
a lot of times, myself included, I want someone to like lay it out for me and be like, tell me what to do so I can get to this point.
Yeah.
But it really is like, you have to be willing to do the work yourself.
Right.
Not, your therapist isn't going to like snap their fingers and heal you.
Right.
Like, it really is the work you have to do yourself.
So that takes self-awareness,
Yeah.
right? And before you've done the work, you don't have that self-awareness.
that's true, yeah.
So at first, maybe you need a therapist that can help you get there,
Mm-hmm.
to gain that self-awareness. And then maybe you graduate from that person and move on to someone else. Because after a while, you're like, I know what I need, and you don't have it in your toolbox. Nothing bad, right?
Yeah.
This person helped you figure out this part.
Yeah.
So you move on to the next and do some EMDR because that's what you need.
What do you think about, because I've been in a position with a lot of my friends that, because I was like a fixer for a while, so people would come to me with a lot of their stuff. I'm also like a tough love person, and people don't know they need that until they get it, and then they're like, okay. What do you think about the concept of like, I want to say like sitting with your feelings? So like if you're sad, instead of trying to distract yourself, actually be sad. Like, is that a common thing that works for everybody? Like, what's your opinion on that? Because I find a lot of people in my life will be sad or something about an issue or something that happened to them or whatever, and they just try and stay busy, and eventually that comes back.
Me. Hi.
But we've all done it, right? But like, is it really good to sit with your feelings? Like, is that an actual thing?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Right? So feelings are supposed to be felt. We're supposed to
100%,
feel
yeah.
our feelings, but no one can walk around feel the damn feelings all the time.
Yeah.
So a little bit of both. I don't
Okay.
believe in black and white.
Okay. Yeah.
I
Love
don't believe in the extremes, and they actually freak me out. So I live in the gray zones. So a little bit of both.
a little bit of both. Okay.
So why do you avoid your feelings? Why is it so hard to? You don't have to answer it. Why is it so hard to sit? She's like freaking out.
she has her eyes. She's like, oh boy.
How much time do we have?
So why are we avoiding? What are we avoiding? Why is this so hard?
Yeah.
And then maybe bring that to your therapist. Like this week,
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z happened, and I didn't sit with it for 1 second because this came up, and I really didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's a coping mechanism to
Yeah,
avoid.
it's also like
Yeah.
what you know. For that answer, I grew up go, 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 go. We never sat. We never just like took a break. Like Sundays, day of rest. Nope. It was wake up. We went to Costco. We went here. We went there. Then we'd have dinner, and then it's like bedtime. So there really was no time to like relax, and that's what I'm like conditioned to do. So now I'm like trying to uncondition myself, whatever. But I think it's also like you're a product of your surroundings
Yep.
too. So it's like what you know.
Yeah, that conditioning is so
I think the
real.
harsh reality too of like you become an adult and you become aware of you have these feelings and these things that affected you. And it's a very hard concept, at least for me, it was a very hard concept to be like, because I started therapy when I was like 28-ish, I'm 32 now. It was so frustrating that I had to go and do all this work to undo these like characteristics or things that I developed because of things that happened to me when I was too little to even have a single clue.
Yep.
It's so frustrating because you're like, I'm here and I'm broken here, or I'm this, or you have whatever
You're
feelings about
already
yourself.
tired, like fucking tired.
And you're
from
already
life.
fucking tired. And now I'm like, now I gotta undo all these like learned behaviors
See,
that I
that's why
have.
I just want the therapist to do it for me.
I know.
A different perspective is you don't have to, you are choosing to.
Right. But I think because when you're like, I would like to be better.
Right.
You know?
empower yourself.
Yeah.
Like that fucked up situation is not what I'm choosing for myself. I can do better. I want better. Or I want different.
Yeah.
So you empower yourself that I'm going to do different.
It's just a crazy concept that I struggled with that for a long time. I was like, none of this is even my fault.
Yeah,
And,
no,
like,
it feels
I have to go back
a
and
little
undo.
helpless.
Yeah, it does. And that's where like the lows, I have like one of my friends just got on her therapy journey, and she's honestly been drawn to it because of like how open I've been with mine. I was like a very closed off person who didn't talk about any of my feelings or any of my or anything. And now all of a sudden I'm like Susie walking down the street. I'm like,
Let me preach to you
Listen
why
to-
therapy
yeah,
is
and let me
good.
tell you how I'm feeling today and why I'm feeling that way. So it's just like a one under the spectrum or
here's
the
a
other.
card.
Yeah. But like she was drawn to go because I was like, listen, like some days you go and you leave and it's awful. You don't feel better. You feel worse than when you got there. And then eventually you get to a point where you're like, this is my favorite hour of the week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes like the point that I'm in now, I don't have anything like I've worked through a lot of my heavy stuff, and obviously those things still come up with like situations and triggers and whatever. But for the most part, like I meet with my therapist now once every 2 or 3 weeks, and sometimes I'm just like, I just got to vent about like my week, and it's become just like a space where like I can dump my stuff, and then I'm not that you can't dump on your friends, but sometimes it's like, I can't dump any more stuff on this person. Yeah. That was I think that's the most freeing thing about therapy, is that you walk around, I feel like you walk around for a long time or a short time, however much, everything is with retrospect. But yeah, it's like you carried all this stuff, and then at some point you're just like, I'm just going to set that down now. And it's not that it doesn't exist anymore, but I'm just like not lugging it through the rest of my life any longer. Like, so I think that
is also acceptance, a part of that.
Right.
You get to a point like, I'm accepting my life the way it is today, and I don't have to dig more. I don't have to fix more.
Right.
I am okay the way I am. It doesn't mean things are perfect. It means that you have accepted how things are.
Sure. And it also doesn't mean work is done either.
Right.
I think it's a lifelong.
Okay to take a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. True.
I think we also need to give ourselves some grace.
Yes.
A lot more times. That is like one of my favorite things to say. On any of my best friends that have ever like come to me with something, that is like my favorite thing to say. I'm like, you got to give yourself some grace.
I said that today in class. Like, give yourself grace if you need. Like, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do things perfectly and do things as good as like what you see. And this kind of brings me to my next point of like, there's a lot of preaching out there from like people who are health coaches or wellness coaches and nothing bad about it, whatever. I share a mantra every day of something that I'm working through. I share my story, whatever. But what are your thoughts on this, like, I don't want to say movement or whatever, of like, I don't know, therapizing on the internet type of thing?
So are you talking about like online therapy?
Yeah.
Or
like
therapy?
no. Like you're scrolling on TikTok and you come across
like everyone is a therapist.
Yes, and someone's like, "Hey there, let me just give you a little bit of love and light today." And
here's my 3 tips.
So it's very biased, and it's the own shit projected onto whoever's watching, right? Because again, your story is not theirs.
True.
And even if it's very similar, you are not them.
Yeah.
So what works for them is not going to be what works for you.
So, like,
so when you follow what they're saying to the teeth and you're like, "What? That didn't work. What's wrong with me?"
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Yeah.
But if you go see someone and give them time to get to know you. So I tell my clients, give me some time to get to know you.
Yeah.
And once figure it out, then I can challenge you on who you are instead of be like, well, Susie over there needed this, so why don't you try that?
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's easier than it is.
Well,
I think.
people want a quick fix.
Yes.
Don't we know it, sister?
Yes.
Don't we
They've been
know
hurting
it?
for a long time.
Yeah.
So they want things done yesterday. So they're coming to me and saying, well, we know you do this. We want that. And I'm like, I don't know you.
Yeah.
So one of my specialties are I work with psychedelic medicine.
Yeah,
Well, I was gonna say,
let's get into
your
that.
therapy journey as a therapist has definitely evolved from where you
Yes.
started. So before we even get into that, how did you get into it?
My own trauma, in short.
Okay.
So when I worked through my own stuff, I experimented with psychedelic medicine. And it worked. In short. So I've also tried Western medicine.
Mm-hmm.
It did the work in the moment, but it kind of numbed me off.
Yeah. I hear that a lot about, like,
But that's the purpose, right? Like when you
Sure,
have
I
gone
guess,
through-
yeah.
For me, when I've been through what I had been through and I needed to go back to work and kind of numb everything off, it worked.
I guess what it is it's not presented that way that you're present. Because when you say it, like, that's what it's meant to do almost, is like numb you so you're not feeling these things that are like crippling you almost. But no one presents it that way. And then I feel like
think you
people
have to
get on
be aware
meds.
of it.
People are full of shit.
Yeah, and people get on meds and they're like, I'm numb.
I had a doctor literally, I was like, I want to decrease my medication because I've been on anxiety medication forever. I'm now very, very low dose, and we could talk about this offline. But like, I was like, I think I want to try getting off of my anxiety medication. And he was like, why? And I was like, because I feel better. And I was like, and he's like, yeah, the medicine's working, stay on it. And I was like, okay, like I felt like I was doing yoga. I was like really going to therapy.
He's
like, I
not
felt
lying
like,
though, right? Do you feel better being on medicine? It's working. If it's not
100%.
broken, don't fix it. He's freaking out. If you get off of it, we're going to have issues. But you're saying, yeah, it's working, but all of these other things are happening
because I
too.
felt like okay, now maybe I feel my emotions too much where like I'll cry at like a stupid commercial, whatever, but I'm fine with it. But like
But
before,
you also feel your joy the same
like
way.
before
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not feeling
Anything. Yeah, I think
and
that's
I'm
tough
also
for
very
people.
anxious that I've been like, I'm nervous to go down the psychedelic route. Like I've always wanted to like do an ayahuasca journey or something like that, which I know is intense in itself. But I'm like, there's something just that seems like you really confront your demons in like a different way. But it also scares me in
Right.
that sense. So I guess you,
Well, I was privileged enough to have the resources to try psychedelic medicine. So it worked great. Then I got trained and certified and tried it with clients. And it's incredible. The things I've seen and what I witnessed, it's mind-blowing.
so what does it look like? Like what does, if you were to be, if someone is like, I'm curious of what this entails, like what does that look like?
So depending on what medicine you use, in our state, ketamine is the psychedelic medicine that is legal as of now. So that is what I'm working with. It depends on, again, your intentions.
Yeah.
It depends on why you're coming in and why you need this medicine. And at first, it wasn't researched the way I use it. So ketamine is an anesthetic. It was used on soldiers who had PTSD as a tranquilizer. They noticed after they woke up that they didn't feel as depressed or suicidal and like, oh, what's going on? But it wasn't paired with therapy.
Yeah.
Right.
The way I use ketamine, I sit in a room with my clients while they're on ketamine and we set intentions and we dig really deep. So it's like they doing several trauma sessions in one session. It's very intense. So it's the quick fix we said we didn't have,
Yeah.
but only if you have enough self-awareness and you have done your work up
Yeah.
until that point. Because if you haven't done work and you come in and you want to do ketamine and you dig into your subconscious and you bring all of this shit up that you haven't worked through, you don't know what to do with yourself. Then you're sitting there, open Pandora's box, and you're like, what do I do with this? Like, I'll see you next week.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Right. Yeah.
To
yeah,
the clients, it's not fair to anyone.
Yeah.
So there's got to be work done up until that moment.
Yeah.
And so would you say like doing ketamine therapy is an actual treatment for anxiety and depression, or it's a treatment for the symptom stuff that comes with
That's a
those
very
things?
good question. So ketamine wasn't even used necessarily for anxiety and depression at first. It was mainly used for PTSD
Sure.
and suicidal thoughts. And it is now used for various things like depression, anxiety, OCD. To me, there's always a deeper issue, right? So if you come and say, I'm really anxious, and I'm like, what are you anxious about? So you may be anxious about traffic today, but that's not your
But that's
issue.
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
agree.
want to go back to when did this start? When do you remember not having anxiety? What triggers this? What are your triggers? Let's understand your triggers first. It's a lot of work before we get into the point where you get a needle in your arm.
Sure. But it helps you kind of also
Self-awareness.
explore those things that you aren't necessarily
Yep.
surface level.
Yep.
Okay.
Because there are things typically coming up during a psychedelic experience that was deep in your subconscious.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't
So
imagine.
when you say psychedelic experience too, are people hallucinating? Are they I guess, like picturing things in their own mind? Are they telling you what's like, let's get gritty into like, what is a session like?
The short answer is it
Everything's
depends.
different. I know. I
Yeah.
knew you were going to say that, but like an example, I guess, of like what could, well, I guess that could be like, well, that didn't happen for me. You know.
So
I think it's just people are scared of it. So, like, is there a way that you can explain it that makes
people
people
do it
not
for different
scared?
reasons. Like I have clients who come in because it's a luxury not everyone can afford.
Right.
Some people
100%.
come in because they want to have a spiritual experience, and they don't have trauma until they do it, and they're like, oh, this came up. So
Until they
Turns
do.
out.
right, because that also tells me that you're not ready to face your trauma. So you come in and say you want to have a spiritual experience. Maybe you don't have trauma. Maybe life is
Lucky
great
you.
and right, but maybe you do and you're not ready to face it, and it will come up.
Are there actually people that exist that you think don't have trauma, or you think this
I
is a
think there are
national
people
phenomenon?
that exist that don't react to their trauma in the same way.
Okay. But everybody has maybe like a something.
I believe that we lived, right? We all
Yeah.
have hardship.
Yeah, for sure.
And we interpret that hardship in different ways.
Okay, fair.
If someone's going and they're like ketamine therapy on Google, what should they, and they're not, let's say they're not in Chicago, so they can't see you, what do they look for?
So first of all, I think it's important that they're in therapy, regular talk therapy, so they have enough understanding and self-awareness. What am I even working on? And then I would suggest that you go with a center or a clinic that is safe. And I mean, I can talk 2 hours just about what that means.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
I don't even know how to get into that right now. But that you feel like you matter as a person, and you just don't come in and do your 6 sessions and get out. Like, there is actually a protocol in place. There's a therapist you're working with. There is a scheduled way of working through your intentions, because also to come in and do 6 sessions in 2 weeks does not work for everyone.
And that's a standard, just for people who don't know, that's like a standard protocol.
The standard protocol is doing 6.
Okay.
And typically we do it in 2 to 3 weeks, pretty back to back. Also, that's what was researched for PTSD and suicidal thoughts. When people feel that awful, they come in and do 6 sessions back to back because they feel euphoric. They feel great. They don't
Sure.
feel suicidal. It gives them hope. But if you are working through really intense trauma and you have stuff coming up from your past and you just realize that you had an assault when you were 6 years old and you just remembered it, you're not ready to go back and put a needle in your arm 2 days later.
No. Oh my God, no, I can't imagine.
So we need to pause and process that.
So it can unlock, because you forget those things because that's a protection mechanism. So it can just, like, I guess, be wary for people listening. Like, it can unlock some
Right.
things that maybe your brain has
It
removed
can
from
unlock
your
suppressed memories.
Okay, gotcha.
Absolutely.
Okay. Interesting. What other, like, psychedelics in the literature are being used for whatever? Like, what are
mental
it's
health
yeah,
research.
it's such
Right.
an up and coming topic, and like I feel like every once in a while I'm seeing like a new paper that's like
Right.
use this to like
I feel
people
like on
no
the
longer
West, they're a lot, or on the West Coast, like they're a lot more.
Well, we have like Oregon, Colorado, and California either legal or decriminalized. So in those states, a lot of more psychedelics are used. So
Yeah.
it's ketamine, ayahuasca, MDMA, psilocybin, and LSD. So the medicine that, and I'm certified and trained to work with all of them. In our state, I work with ketamine legally. I do go to other states to work with other medicine.
yes.
Yes. So psilocybin is the medicine that calls me. That's the one I'm most comfortable with. That's the one that, it's mushrooms, right? It's
Sure.
a plant.
Yeah.
So it's as organic as it gets.
Yeah.
So that would be the one that I feel is a bit milder. And I'm saying that cautiously because with ketamine, it's very clinical. You could adjust the dose, but to come in a clinical setting, you get the dose that your doctor prescribed.
Sure.
And then you're going with it. With psilocybin, you and your guide or whoever you're doing with, you decide how you start. You can microdose or you can do a macrodose. And what is the amount of dose and what are we working on? It's more like freeing. You moving around. You can walk outside if you want to. With an IV ketamine, your tranquilizer sitting in a chair.
right.
Right.
It also depends on your preference. Like I have people come in with medical trauma. It's hard for them to do ketamine.
Totally.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
It's hard for them to receive an IV.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, I
what's
know that.
what are the like differences, I guess, between all of these? Like the experience, obviously, like one's an IV, one's a mushroom, but like
So with ketamine, you can do an IV, you can do intramuscular, you can do nasal spray, you can do a tablet. But pretty much, let's say you do an IV at the clinic where I do it, it's 40 minutes long. So you come in, you receive an IV. It takes a few minutes before it kicks in. It's a constant high for 40 minutes, and then it's done.
is there a come down from it? Like after, are you like
It's very individual. So
Okay.
some people feel like they've just been through the most and they've been in therapy for hours and just like ripped their entire gut out and laid it on a table. And some people feel like this was great. I feel wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's do this again. It's very individual.
Yeah.
It also depends on what came up. So if you process sexual assault for the first time, you don't feel great.
Yeah.
You kind
Sure.
of feel like, what
Totally.
the fuck just happened?
yeah.
But if you're coming out, typically the first session, I'm a bit loosey-goosey with intentions. I just allow them to feel the medicine.
Yeah.
So typically after the first time, they're like, this was great. Let's do this again. I'm like, oh, next time we're going to do some work.
Yeah, we're going a little deeper
A
this
little
time.
bit deeper, yeah.
And then with
But with mushrooms, it takes about an hour for it to kick in. It's a longer trip. So it's about 5-6 hours of me sitting with a patient. Or if we do it in a group ceremony, which is psilocybin, it's a very community medicine. We do it in a group setting. So there's a few people come in and we're there for 6 hours. It takes an hour before the medicine kicks in, and then they kind of process it on their own. If they need to talk with someone one-on-one, they can. If they want to sit and journal or just cry it out or laugh it out or walk around, it's very individual. Sometimes they find someone in a group, they may know them or not know them. They just sit and click and talk about something for a little bit.
And then it fades out?
The effects of
yeah.
it? Yes.
Do you have to do or would you recommend someone doing like an individual, if they were looking to do like a psilocybin session, an individual session before doing a group session?
Nope,
or it's
not
kind
necessarily.
of okay.
It also depends on you as a person. How do you feel about sitting in a group setting with a bunch of people? Probably
Sure.
a bunch
Does it
of
make
strangers.
Yeah.
Sometimes people like that because they don't have to take care of the energy in a room. Because
Yeah.
when you bring in other energy in a room, it will impact your energy.
Okay.
So
yeah.
some people feel like it's great that there's a bunch of strangers. I don't have to take care of them. Some people feel like that's awkward. They're going to watch me or listen to me or see me. I don't like that. I want to do an individual. Some people feel like, what am I going to talk to you about for 5 hours? No, I need to have a group so you don't focus
So you don't.
on me.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, with psilocybin, it's about a 3-hour high.
Okay.
So the peak of it is 90 minutes. The first 90 minutes, you go up like this.
Yeah.
And then after the 90 minutes peak, when you come down, it's kind of an in and out. So you feel more or less in control when you come down.
Yeah.
But there are moments where you're like, oh, I'm totally great. And you're like, I'm still high.
With that come down, is there more of like a come down after or same as ketamine?
Same.
Okay.
But you feel really tired because your brain has been like nonstop going and
Yeah.
firing for like hours.
Yeah.
So some people come out feeling on top of the world. Like, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do this. I'm going to have
Let's
a whole...
go.
Yeah.
Right. You feel
Maybe
very
the three of us
inspired.
should have a little session
And
somewhere.
after we come out being like, what?
Yeah,
would actually
we'll be
pretty
geniuses.
Cool to like talk about it after. Like, what
Yeah.
happened.
Here's what we did. Yeah.
Recorded. Because a lot of the things
yeah.
you say,
yeah, like you might not
you feel like,
remember.
oh my God, this was genius. And then you watch it, you're like, oh, I said this. And
That was actually a terrible idea.
Right. Well, not terrible, but it's like, oh, I did. So during one time when I had a ceremony, my two best friends are also clinical psychologists. So the three of us had our own little thing going on. And at one point, I'm like, I have to go use the restroom. And I'm just so annoyed that I have to get up again and go use the restroom. Because every time you move and shift, things shift with you.
Sure.
So I was like, in that moment, I was morphed into the couch. I was really comfortable. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to get up again. And one of them was like, just go take care of your body. I'm like, you're right. So I went to the bathroom and I came back and I'm like, girls, standing up is different from sitting down. And they
You've
were
got
laughing at
to
me.
try it.
And it was like the most mind-blowing thing to me. Like, you're not stuck.
Yeah.
You can get up. You can move. And that was like, that just shifted that was my intentions for that ceremony,
Yeah.
actually. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
It's like, move. Get up and move.
Yeah. Like something so simple.
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought it was like, I said the most mind-blowing thing. And there's still to this day, we're talking about it and make fun of me. But
But yeah.
yeah.
In that moment, it was like the greatest.
It was. It still is. I stand by it. Try it. Standing
Try
up
it,
is different
everyone.
than sitting down.
So what happens if you decide to do this and it goes wrong? Like,
That's
how
a
do
great
That's where
question.
my anxiety goes. It's like, what if I hallucinate something that like I don't want to see, or what if like
I've seen this girl take an edible, and let me tell you,
I'm not a big marijuana person, and so
which is fine. You don't have to be, but it's just like it's funny. Like I've seen
we were at dinner and I took an edible.
like a 2.5.
Like a very small, okay? I
so
know,
hard.
I know, okay? And I took it, and all of a sudden
She's
I
a
was
lightweight.
like, whoa.
She's
I
a-
was like, it hit me, and Taylor's like, I don't feel anything.
I was like, it's been 3 hours. Like I think it's already gone and it came and passed. But honestly, I can't make fun of you because, and I will speak to this experience.
Be curious.
Yes. I myself have recreationally dabbled in some things, and I have taken my, like, to the point where I was in a different state, and the only person that I could think of that could talk me off the ledge was this one right here. And I called her like
I remember you
9
telling me
times in a
about this.
row.
Yeah.
We would hang up the phone and 8 minutes would go by, and I'd be like, it's me again.
But I think about
Like,
that.
I need you
that's
to,
where-
I was like, I need you to tell me that it's okay just one more time. And then she would be like, it's okay. And then I would hang up and I'd be like, I think I got to call her again. So like,
Just to make sure it's still okay.
so you're 2.5 and whatever I was
Like,
doing,
that's-
I've been there.
That's my whole thing is like I had a really, really bad experience on marijuana. Granted, it was like with a bong, like whatever. It wasn't the best, but I had a bad experience. So like that's what, maybe trauma, whatever.
Well,
that
you
I
also
had.
have anxiety, right?
Right.
And if you would smoke or use sativa, which is a psychoactive cannabis, that would trigger your anxiety.
Yeah.
So you need to stay away from sativa products.
Yeah.
If you're gonna smoke,
Right.
stick to indica,
don't
even
really
some
do anything,
hybrids.
but yeah.
But to answer your question, there is no bad trip really. If you use it in a therapeutic
I
setting,
remember
and
you
it's
telling me
safe.
this when I was panicking. You were like, this is not a bad experience, just like it's an experience and just have it. So I
think
like
I'm
that you just added that.
This is my anxiety. I'll be stuck like that forever.
No, but you do feel that because I felt that. I was like, this is the rest of my life. How am I going to go on?
Well, to be fair, when you are using psychedelics, everything feels permanent in that
It
moment.
does.
So the joy you feels like you're on top of the world.
It's like the funniest moments of your life.
Yep.
Like
Life has never been this happy. It's never been this great. It's never been this funny. And then when you fall into a bad state, it's like, oh my God, this is horrible. I'm going to get stuck here forever. What do I do?
Yeah.
Am I okay?
Am I okay? 900 times in a row.
And once you get past it, it's like, it was nothing.
Yeah, no, it really would. The next day I was like, that was silly. You know, like, I'm all right. But like in the
But
moment
it's
though,
the
you
thought
can't.
that come up. Your
yeah.
perspective is your reality.
Yeah,
And then during
yeah.
it, that's why we set intentions. Because
Right.
if you don't have intentions and you get stuck somewhere and you don't have a guide that can pull you out of it to the next,
Right.
then you're stuck in this horrible reality. But in a ceremony or in a therapeutic setting, I don't believe in a bad trip. I believe in whatever comes up. Be curious about what it is and let's work through it.
Yeah.
And if you're not ready to tap into it, that's okay. Let's close that door.
Mm-hmm.
We put a pin in it, put it on the shelf, and we come back. Let's go here.
Right.
So that's like also the benefits too of doing it guided versus people who are just like doing stuff.
Right.
on
And
their
it could
own.
be something like, oh my God, Leila, I remember when I was 10 and my dog died. I don't want to talk about that right now. Let's not.
Okay.
Let's
Yeah.
not. Let's
Yeah.
put a pin in it and we talk about something else. So I pull you out of it. And
Yeah.
it's just like that.
Yeah.
Then you're not
I
stuck
think
there
there's
anymore.
a misconception too with it that like that's exactly people are apprehensive about it because they're like I don't want to get to a space where I have to talk about this thing that like I've been
Right.
I don't even want to. So it's nice to know that you can
when we
actually
also
kind of
do
control.
psychedelics, especially mushrooms, in a recreational setting. We
Mm-hmm.
sit with our thoughts, and we don't be like, oh, you guys, you know what I'm thinking about and what's coming
Yeah.
up for me.
Right.
So we sit in our thoughts, and we feel I can't say this out loud. It sounds crazy.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
just sit and we spin on it even more.
Yeah. Are ketamine, psilocybin same receptors in the brain or
Yes.
okay. Okay. So that's another thing to be like weary of.
Yes. So same thing with SSRIs. They work on
Yes.
the same receptors. So with psilocybin and SSRIs, we have to be very careful about double dipping.
Mm-hmm.
So we cannot microdose while you use an SSRI. You can do a macrodose, but you have to know how it impacts your medicine. So definitely to talk to a medical provider, a psychiatrist who is educated on psychedelic medicine. With ketamine is more... It's a bit different. You can still do ketamine when you are on SSRI because you don't microdose on it. It's also just for the treatment. But you also need to know how it's going to impact your medicine. Absolutely.
Okay. Good to know. Where do you think the world of psychedelics and mental health
my
is headed? Sorry to steal your thunder.
No, I literally in my head was like, okay, I feel like we've gotten so far. And
Like, do
obviously
you
we're not
think
there.
we're ready to receive this as a like
That's a
common
really good
treatment
question.
modality? You know what I mean?
You know, I want to believe yes because I want to have faith in people. And I also see what an amazing thing it is and what it can do to the field, to our field, to the field of psychology. So I want to say yes, but I'm also seeing how it's being abused. But everything's being abused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Food is being abused. Exercise being abused. So the things that are good for us can be abused. So
Yeah.
if we use it properly, it's amazing. If we don't use it properly, it could damage us, just like anything else.
where do you think, after whatever, but where do you think psychiatry is going?
I'm already seeing that we're moving away from this whole this is what works towards there's no one size fit all, and there need to be more of a holistic and individual plan.
Yeah.
Same thing with when you bring psychedelics into it. It may not work to have 6 sessions for everyone. It may not work to have this type of ceremony for everyone. So we have to get to know our clients and create a plan based on their needs and who they are. But I totally think that psychedelic is the future of psychiatry.
Why do you think people are so resistant to it?
Because it's a drug, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the stigma around it. It's a psychedelic drug, and it's used in a recreational setting in a not safe way.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
are resistant, just
Yeah.
like when weed first got legalized.
Yeah.
It's a drug, so people are going to go crazy, and some people did and some people didn't.
Yeah.
But to your point, also like alcohol
Yeah.
is abused all the time. Food, like all of these things. I know that like food and exercise are not drugs, but I mean alcohol is a big one where
And
it's
that's
like
why I mentioned those things. 'Cause
Yeah.
Yes, alcohol is a drug and it's legal, and people are using it and abusing it.
yeah, I think oftentimes that one really puts you in in a
Yeah.
not great position mentally. What's one of the other ones that you mentioned? Because I feel like ketamine is becoming more popular. Psilocybin
Mushrooms
is
are
one.
becoming more popular.
What's one of the other ones that you've mentioned that you would
LSD.
help or you would hope would be the next? Like,
So LSD is great as a stimulant. So a lot of individuals that struggle with, I mean, it's also work for depression and anxiety and all of that, right? But LSD also works really great for attention issues. So I have clients that microdose LSD instead of taking Adderall.
okay, which is a big, because Adderall is essentially like one carbon component away from being meth. So it's like a
it's
crazy.
amphetamine.
Yeah, yeah.
And it comes with a crash, and it impacts our brain, and we put kids on it, and their brain is on amphetamine from a young age.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for children?
Oh, that is such a hard
I
question.
know. Well, because I think there are a lot of people who have children who maybe struggle with ADD, ADHD,
Yeah.
or whatever, and they feel helpless, but then they go to the doctor, and the doctor's like,
Here's some
here's some
Ritalin.
Adderall,
Yeah.
whatever.
I'm not a medical doctor, so just to put it out there, I understand why some parents put their children on ADHD medication because they are struggling that hard and school is really hard and they can't pay attention and they don't have the resources or the time and energy to work with them behaviorally.
Yeah.
But I would start there
Work with them behaviorally. Yeah.
before you medicate them. I do believe that some people need the
Yeah.
medication, but I think that we're going there way too soon and it's
It's
premature.
like a fault.
Yeah.
Do you also think Adderall is something that people like, it becomes like a barrier for them because they cannot function without it? Like, do you think that had they not taken an Adderall or like a amphetamine approach so early on, that, and maybe we tried behavioral therapy or whatever it may be, that they would be less dependent on this substance like later in life? Because I know people in their adult life that are like, I can't function without it.
Again, I think our perspective is our reality. There are people that, let's say women who had a baby that have a little bit of postpartum blues, they are put on Zoloft, and then they're on Zoloft for 20 years because it's working. And they never questioned.
Right,
Am
and
I
like, where
still
was the
struggling with
reevaluation?
postpartum? Am I still sad? Do I still need this?
So we're also, like, what I'm hearing is we're also not doing a good job at reevaluating these people that we're putting on medications to see, like,
Right.
where are you at and where do we go from here?
I'm cautious about how I'm saying this, but we put a lot of trust in our healthcare provider and don't listen
Yeah.
to our bodies enough.
100. I think because it takes a lot of work to get to know your body. It takes a lot of
Right.
work to be like, who am I? What am I feeling? Even like, it took me years to understand my hunger cues, to understand what I want to eat, what I like, because I struggled so much with an eating disorder. I was like, I looked to everybody else to be like, what are you eating? How much are you eating? Are you finishing your meal? Are you not finishing your meal? Like, all of these things. And I think we become so out of tune with our bodies.
Especially women.
Yeah.
So boys, men are a lot better at that. Boys look inside of themselves. Girls look outside of themselves. They look at each other and society and what is everyone else doing, and let me do that as well. So you're right. Then we don't know who we are.
Yeah.
We don't recognize our bodies because we're so detached from it.
That's such an interesting concept
Yes.
that men do a better job at looking inward than women do. But I guess when you really think
They
about
don't
it.
give a shit.
No, they don't
You
give a
ask a
shit.
group of boys playing video games in a room if they're hungry, all right, it was like, yeah. You ask a group of girls, they all
Are you
look
guys
at each
hungry?
other.
Are you?
Yeah,
And then
no.
they have a group answer, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking about this Mel Robbins quote, and she was like, this year our saying is like, let them. Like what anybody thinks about you, whatever, like let them think it, let them. And it's like been sitting with me because I do seek outside approval so much. And like I seek, the world is like this place where you're like always wanting like satisfaction from other people. And I've really been sitting with this, like, let them. People don't like me.
How
let them.
liberating.
Right. But it's hard.
It is hard.
And it's that constant, like you have to constantly remind yourself of that. And
But
just be
once
like,
you get to that acceptance,
Yeah.
it's so easy.
yeah, it's just,
Because then you're like, oh, cool.
yeah, bye type of thing.
Yeah.
What are any like stigmas that you think there are about either psychedelics or therapy or therapists or whatever that you would like to either see not be a stigma or break the stigma?
Well, a lot of people think that mental health clinicians have their shit together. That just because
You're like, I can tell you, we do not.
we do not.
You play it off well though.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm doing pretty okay within myself, right?
Yeah.
I worked for a very long time to be where I am today. It doesn't mean I don't have bad days. It
Oh,
doesn't
yeah,
mean I'm
of
done
course.
working on myself. That's
Yeah.
just ignorant to think.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think I have my life together. I don't have rough days. I don't get angry. I don't get stressed out or anxious. I don't have days where I want to sit in bed and just
Yeah.
lay there all day. It happens.
Yeah.
So because of that, they have less understanding for us.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Yeah.
And also assuming that because we have our shit together, we can tell you what to do. What
Yeah.
you said earlier, like, you just tell me what's going
Yeah,
on. I'm
just
like,
lay it out for
I
me.
don't even know what to do with my life. You really want me to be in charge
It's
of
so
yours?
true because I'm always like, God, but like if there's something that like you just know what to say as a therapist. Like,
Well, I have
therapists just, like,
clients
know
that
how to
tell
say
me,
it.
I know you're not supposed to, but can you just tell me what to do?
And you're
Do you
like,
have your favorite
well,
clients? I always think I'm definitely my therapist's favorite. Like I know I am. I'm not kidding. Do you have your favorites?
you better
Well-
hope she doesn't listen to this because she's gonna be like, I gotta stop seeing this girl.
You know, at this point, I'm at a place in my career where the clients I have them because I want to work with them.
Yeah.
I don't work with people I don't want to.
Yeah.
So I really like my clients. I really do. Like, I get excited to see them. I mean, I know it's going to be hard work, right? I know
Yeah.
we're going to work through things. I'm like, oh man, I hope today's a light session. But most of my clients I really like. But yeah, I do have people I'm like, yes, I can't wait to hear this.
Yeah. Like this is gonna be so good today.
And it can change. Like, I definitely have people I cheer on, and I have people I check in with outside of session, and I'm
Yeah.
involved in their life.
Oh,
Like, at any point, I have like 100 best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I got engaged, I literally that night was like, I have to text Alyssa, my therapist. I was like, I have to text her. I have to let her
Yeah.
know. Like, I got engaged.
That's
Hey.
really nice.
Well, it's one of the most personal people to you. Like, there's people that you surround yourself with that don't know 80% of like what's actually
Yeah.
you, makes
Yeah.
up you. So
Totally.
it is like, I mean, it's not your like bestie that you're gonna go grab drinks with, but it is like one of the most
their bestie.
important.
Yeah, like deepest relationships that you have because you're literally divulging hopefully so much,
Yeah.
like of yourself, of your past, of your whatever.
But
your
it's very
desires.
humbling. I have people that come to me weekly and share the most intimate details of their lives. It's very humbling that they're
Yeah.
choosing me and I get to be a part of their story. I love that.
Yeah.
It's super cool. I want to know what happens next. It's like
Yeah.
reading a good book.
Yeah. Do you find that there's a like population of people who sit down in front of a therapist and don't necessarily divulge everything? Like they're still uncomfortable.
hold back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or they don't know how to. They never done it. They don't know what's appropriate. They want to, typically these are people that are very black and white. They have to do things the right way.
Sure.
So they come to therapy to ask, well, how do you do this? I've had friends and family ask me when they're going to go see a therapist, well, how do I start? And typically my answer is wherever you want. They're like, yeah, but what is the right way? I'm like, well, why are you there? They're like, well, that's the thing. How do I start with why I'm there? And my thing is like, there is no right way. Well, what do you want to talk about? Can you just tell me?
Yeah. And you're
I'm like, I don't know what you're asking.
Is it ever hard to like not share stories about your patients. Like I always think about like, oh God, that would be such a good story. The story that I just told my therapist for her to like go tell other people. And like, obviously you wouldn't be like, as a therapist, like Jordan just told me blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, some of these stories are like so good.
I mean, you can talk about your stories as long as you protect your clients,
Yeah.
right? If I think that Jordan is well known in the community and I'm talking about this instructor, then I wouldn't, right?
Sure,
Putting
sure,
your business out
yeah.
there. But I can talk about, one of my clients just got engaged and she sent me a picture and that was really sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't know. I think about it sometimes and I'm like, God, I don't think I could be it because
I just don't know if I could live with like having a bunch of clients and them telling me just like the most like interesting, craziest things that happen to them, and then it's just like I just know that, and I just have to like
You're like,
live
"Hey,
with.
thanks.
That's
See
why
you
you got to
next
wait
week.
till next week to hear the rest. You get to
Like
live
I
it
would
with
be
them,
like, but what?
right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
something you get to share
But
with
I'd want to
them.
be like, Darius, listen to what happened today.
yeah. But like you can't.
Yeah.
That would be a difficult. I mean, you would honor it, but like.
So my curiosity is, why do you have that need? Why do you need to share?
I don't know. It's a good story. I want other people
So
to
to
hear it. I
me,
don't
it's
know.
always felt good to keep someone's story.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you share something with me, even if you talk to Taylor every day, I don't need to tell her.
Yeah.
Like if you wanted to tell her, you could have told her yourself. So
True.
I feel like I get to hold that story with me. That's something special you and I share.
Oh, I should take that. I like
Just leave
that.
it.
I should take that.
Copy that.
I'm gonna copy it. Okay. Wait, I already asked that. What's the most surprising thing you've learned from a patient or through your work?
Surprising. It's a good question. You know, early on, one of my very first mentors, I adore her. She loved to tell me everything I know. She told me that I never get surprised by my clients. I always expect the unexpected from everyone. So having that mindset, and I'm saying that because, again, I'm trying to apply curiosity.
Yeah.
I can't really think of a story because I heard a lot of like very traumatic things, very horrible things, very like you can't make this shit up.
Yeah.
But that's also my everyday life. So to me, it's like I'm so desensitized.
Yeah.
To
yeah.
it being. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, you did it. Because a lot of the things I hear, but it's a regular Tuesday for me. So I don't
Yeah.
even know what to pick, to be honest. But
As like an everyday human, it'd probably be like, oh my God, so
Yeah.
many things. But to like you're like, no, this is like
Yep.
my.
Do you ever feel exhausted at the end of a?
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you take care of you?
Yeah. What's your like de-stress? Like.
So I have my own therapist. I adore her. She is very different from me, and that is exactly what I need.
It works that way. Yeah.
Oh, it works great.
Yeah.
And I mean it in a sense that if I had someone that was more like me, they would just allow me to float away in the balloon I am. But she kind of pulls me back and be like, I don't know about that. Are you sure about this? So I have my own therapy. I have amazing friends. So I have a great community of people where I can go to and vent, but also for them to challenge me in a proper way.
Yeah.
I work out so I can I can release.
Yeah.
And I use psychedelic medicine.
Nice. Should we get to the fun question?
Yeah. Pop off on the fun questions.
Oh.
Let's go. All right. If you could have a session with any person, character, anybody in the world, who would it be and why?
So in my spare time, I read a lot of memoirs for fun. Because, again, I'm curious about people's life and why
Yeah.
they are the way they are. Like, why did Britney shave her head? Like, I want to know what happened.
Yeah.
No, we all do.
Right? I tell you, I read her book. So for me, actually, if I could sit with anyone, I would want to sit with people in my own family who hasn't opened up. Because I want to know, why am I the way I am?
Yeah.
Why were
Yeah.
you the way you were? Like, I barely know my parents' story because that's just not who we are in our family. I don't know anything about my grandparents, and they're dead and gone. So I will bring them back, and I will
Yeah.
want to sit with them and hear their
See,
stories.
Yeah.
That's what matters to me. Like, I don't really care about celebrities in the world and pick their brain. Like,
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
know why I am the way
I
I
always
am.
think about that, like my grandparents who I never met. I'm like, I always like would love to just like sit down at dinner and just be
Pick
like,
that
who
brain.
are you? Like, I know I'm named after you, but like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like,
What
what's
was your life like? Yeah. What was hard for you?
Yeah.
Did you have anxiety? Do you know what anxiety is?
Are you as like crazy as I am? Please.
Yeah, make it make sense.
You know what I mean.
If you weren't a psychologist, what would be another job that you would entertain or would want to do?
I wanted to be a hairstylist when I was younger.
Well, you
But
got
that's
the
pretty
hair
much
for it, sister.
It's pretty much being a thank you. I received that. But that's pretty much being a therapist without a license.
100%.
It is.
All the
You're
stuff
not
that
wrong.
We, like, divulge
Yeah.
to our hairstylist. 100%.
Okay, also real quick, I want to touch on, because you've said I've received that twice now and I've gotten that from you. That is the best, like, so I'm a terrible at receiving compliments. Like, I've
Same.
always been that way. It makes me uncomfortable. Like, I don't
Someone
know.
will be like, your hair looks great. I'm like, oh my God.
And I'm
it's
like,
clean.
actually, yes. And as women, we do that thing where we're like, instead of just being, when someone's like, you look beautiful, instead of just being like, thank you, you're like, well, actually, so I had to put all this makeup on and then I had to get my hair done and this dress is actually from, and like you give this whole
Yes.
thing.
Rather than just being like, I receive it. Thank you.
Yes, but you have taught me that, like in a situation like that, when you're like, someone says something not nice about you or complimenting you or whatever, to say, I received that, because then you're letting that person know that you're acknowledging what they're saying and you don't have to give some. I feel like sometimes people say nice things about us and we feel like we have to give this like grandiose response.
Or you have to say something
compliment
nice about
back.
them.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I actually can't stand you, but thank you so
Yeah.
much for like what you said about me. So that was, I just wanted to like pick that out because I think
Yeah.
that's a good like.
Is that a practice that you have recently started? Something you always do?
So I grew up in a culture where we don't necessarily receive things. And when they give compliments, because they do that a lot, it's just like that. You give it back. If they say, oh, that's a nice purse. Oh, my God, you can have it.
Yeah.
I literally give it away to you. Or
Let me
if you
take all
have
my
this,
stuff out. No,
No,
just take my money.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
or
fine.
you have great hair. Oh, it's not as nice as your hair.
Yeah.
And again, when growing up, and I would say, thank you. And then I would be like, that's rude. You just don't like, oh,
Yeah.
I know my hair is so nice. You don't say that. That is
Yeah,
rude. So
yeah.
I'm like, but why? So I was that kid, but why? And it was never like, I never got a satisfied answer.
Yeah.
So I learned to receive it my own way. So then I did say it. I received it. I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
I received that. And that is still weird to some people.
But it's not though. Like I think it is like and I mean, I still do it. We sat down and we had a chat with Marlon not too long ago, and Jordan said Jordan's always, we're a very good pair.
Yeah.
This girl and I. But she always is, you
You're
know.
a nice yin and yang.
Yeah.
Yes.
But she's always very good at being like, I think that you're, and like complimenting my accolade, like whatever it may be. And I turned to her and I was like, well, blah, 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 blah. And Marlon was like, just say that you received that and move on. And it's so true.
proud of
Like, no, but it is. It's so true. Like it takes the pressure off of feeling like you have to come up with like a reason why you are that thing. It's like you're trying to like define this thing about yourself that you might not necessarily believe about yourself in the moment, right? But like,
Darius has done that to me a million times where like he'll give me a compliment and I'm like, oh, it's like that. And he's like, just say
thank you. Yeah. And
But
then
it's
you're
the
like,
discomfort that comes up.
Yes.
People are uncomfortable with compliments. They don't know how to receive it. They feel uncomfortable within themselves and things get awkward. We don't know how to continue from it. So I want to invite people to just receive it.
Yeah.
yeah. And like, I think it helped, like, thank you can just sometimes be, like, I relate that. I remember when I was younger, my grandma used to be like, no, if anyone ever tells you that you love them and you don't love them back, you just say thank you. And so
Okay,
like,
but love you has become like a thing where it's like, love you, love you, love you.
Yes.
And I'm like, we're throwing around this like really powerful, deep word of like I think love is something like really special and like even friendship love.
I don't think it's the same in every language, but in English,
No,
you're right.
100%. Yeah.
No, but it's like Taylor and I talk about this all the time where like
We do.
people will be like, love you, and you're like,
I'm like, I don't even know you.
like you actually don't even know me. Like maybe you think you do, but I've met you twice and you love me. I'm like, just
I received that.
Well, right. No, but you can absolutely, that's like what it is, because like I remember that exact conversation where she's like, you just say thank you. And I'm like, that's really fucking weird, Grandma. But like, and then, you know, you're in 8th grade and some boy's like, I love you. And you're like, thanks.
Thank you.
You know, like,
then you're like an asshole.
and then you're like, it's weird. But it takes like the weird away from the thank you too, the I receive
But
that.
it's also a nice gesture. If you give me something and I receive it from you, that's me showing gratitude about what you are giving me. You're giving me a compliment.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. I will receive it.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving it to me.
I want people to start instilling that. I want
Yeah.
that to become a
thing.
A thing.
A thing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I received that because it's tremendous. It's changed the way I like take
No,
compliments.
it's such a different way of thinking it's not new because it's not, but it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
like
It's
a
just
new
a
way
different
of-
way of saying the same thing.
Truthfully, of receiving. You
Yeah.
know?
No, 100%.
Most of my clients say that now.
Yeah, it's such a good thing because it's like avoidance. Like you avoid almost like feeling and receiving it. Like truthfully, like you avoid receiving a compliment by just like shooting it back out.
Because I think a lot of times people compliment the things that you're insecure about as well. So like that stuff, it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
It's not comfortable. So it's a weird to say thank you to something when you're like, I don't think that's true. I'm hideous. You know? Or like, like if someone walked in here and was like, you have great hair, I'd be like, come on. You know what I mean? Like,
But what if they do think you have a great hair? So
I
it's
receive
hard
that.
for you. That was great.
Thank you. Thank you. That's how I'm dealing with it. But yeah. Anyways, do you have, last one, but do you have like a mantra or something that you either
Move through life with, or
or something you frequently tell yourself to
practice,
remind
a
yourself?
Yes,
Or-
it's on my bracelet. It says keep fucking going. So
Beautiful.
My
I love it.
therapists have this thing from Finding Dory where she goes, just keep swimming, just
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
swimming.
yeah.
And that's kind of my thing. When things get hard, I'm like, don't stay here. Sitting down is different from standing up.
Yeah.
You don't get stuck. Keep moving.
I love that.
Just keep swimming.
Because nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent. The good feelings, the bad feelings, the ups, the downs, nothing is permanent. Just keep moving through it. It will change. It will get you to a new state. New state may not be great either, but that's
But
not
it's
permanent
still,
either.
yeah.
Keep moving.
You're still moving. I love it.
Your current situation is not your final destination. That's one of the biggest things I've carried with me.
I love that.
I know.
I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thanks.
Little,
I
like
received that.
tidbits of like dropping the knowledge. I was like, just drop the mic, like mic drop.
Yeah, like be on your
just
way.
so good.
No, it is good. That was great.
I love mic drop moments.
No, you gave me about 80, but I do. I feel like there's something like a good therapist, when like the simplest thing that they say, you're like, oh, it's fucking brilliant.
I know. It's
Would never thought of that myself.
Because they know you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, because they said that to you.
Yeah.
That wouldn't work for anyone.
Yeah.
So that's what a good therapist is. They give a shit about who the client is and they get to know them.
Yeah.
It's work.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
on both ends, I would say.
Yeah.
Totally. Therapist.
Yeah, because you got to show up and do the work. I'm not going to be able to get to know you if you don't present yourself.
And that's got to be hard too on like a day when you're just like, I don't fucking feel like listening to people talk, and then you have to listen to people talk too. So it's both ends.
Yeah.
Work on both ends for
Yeah.
sure.
Any last tip that you would leave anybody watching this with? Could be about anything.
Ooh, that's so big,
I
Jordan.
know. It's so broad.
I know.
You've got like such a wealth of knowledge.
But you're so in tune.
You know, I would say embrace who you are and accept yourself for who you are. And then whatever you don't like about that, work through that based on who you are. Just be honest with yourself.
Amazing.
I love it.
If somebody was trying to reach you, where would we find you?
I have a website. I'm
Okay.
on Instagram. I'm not super active, but I have a website. I'm on Psychology Today.
Okay. What, you have a personal website?
I do have
What
a
is it?
personal website. It's called New Dawn, the name of my practice.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. She's got the cutest business cards. Have you seen them?
NEWDAWN. Yes, I have.
The cutest business
They're
cards.
like blue, right?
And purple.
And purple.
yeah.
Yeah. Super cute.
Yeah.
And
Shout
then
out to my girl who made up.
and what's your Instagram handle?
Dr. Leila Ortiz.
Okay. So, yeah, if you're interested, reach out, read about.
Like, I'm just gonna say, like, submit an inquiry, slide into the DMs,
Yeah.
do everything. 'Cause
Yes,
you're just
I have a team, so come see us.
a
Yeah.
wealth of knowledge, truly, and beautiful to talk to. Amazing. I'm so excited for everyone to listen to this. I just feel like it's like little things that I feel like people don't often allow themselves to like hear.
Yeah.
And I feel like the world of psychology, as you said, is changing, and there's a lot of cool things to look forward to. So, thank you so much.
Thank
for
you
coming.
so
guys for
much.
having me.
Thank
This is
you.
great.
We'll do it again after we have ourselves a little ceremony and we'll.
Yes,
we'll
honestly,
talk.
I feel like that would be really, really.
I would do it with you.
eye-opening. I would do it. I mean, I would do it. With
I don't
you,
think you'd freak me
100%.
out.
I think I would freak myself out, so I might. We'll have to talk about this offline.
I bring
but,
in
like,
team.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need a 2-on-2. It can't just be us two.
Yeah, we'll circle back after we have that experience. But Anywho.
Anyway, well, you know where to find us at The Girls Are Fine on TikTok and Instagram. Feel free to slide into the DMs. Definitely reach out to Leila. And as always, just remember,
Everything's fine.
fine.
Bye.